It's likely the most commonly used and misused hand tools is the screwdriver. Hi, I'm Tom Dutton. Screwdrivers come in many different styles, shapes, and sizes. Each one is specially made. Today I want to talk about the most commonly used one, which by the way is called the common screwdriver. It is also called the slotted and the flat tip screwdriver.
What may have been the first screws were probably nails with twisted shanks, which held better than a nail with a straight shank. Later on, someone probably put a notch in the head of one of these nails so they could remove it. The first illustrations of slotted screws date back to the 15th century in a manuscript picturing a leg iron and a pair of manacles fastened together. The screws had hand-filed threads, and the screw head was slotted with a hacksaw. But since these bolts were handmade, they weren't interchangeable. Still later, slotted screws were used in the manufacture of battle armor.
Today, when we think about screws, we think about something that looks like this, that has a head that a screwdriver blade will go into. But screws, when they were invented by the Greeks, weren't even used as screws. They were used to press olive oil out of olives. The Romans used bolts, which had a head and a bolt that went on the end of it and were tightened with wrenches. Screws themselves did not actually come into being until about the 15th century or so, when they were used to join medieval armor together. Screws might have even been a straight shaft that had a spiral in them and a slot cut into the hand so that they could be removed. The first screwdrivers were actually called screw pullers. It wasn't until 1760 that some British brothers invented the first machine that was designed to put threads on screws. The screws at that time had to have the head formed. Later on, machines were developed that gave us the screw as well as the head formed.
The fact that the blade of this most basic screwdriver moves loosely in the screw slot is the primary reason for all the specialized screwdriver tips that have been developed. Nevertheless, if you follow certain guidelines, the flat-tip screwdriver is a powerfully effective tool. A standard screwdriver size is generally determined by the length of its shaft and the width of its blade tip. The shank length may run anywhere from 2 to more than 12 inches in length, not including the length of the handle. The corresponding blade tip might be anywhere from 3/16 to a ½ inch. The wider the tip of the screwdriver blade, the thicker its tip will be. As the length of the shaft increases, the wider and thicker the blade tip will be, and the greater the size and diameter of the handle. This provides more area for the technician to grip and increases the screwdriver's capacity for turning larger screws with greater ease.
One of the most common problems with using a slotted screwdriver is getting the correct screwdriver size. If the wrong size screwdriver, say too big of a screwdriver, and you try to use it on this slot, it doesn't fill the depth of the slot. It's too wide for the head, and not only that, but it pops out of the slot too easily. This is a very dangerous situation. When this happens, it can slip out and catch your hand and cut yourself. Also, if you get too small of a screwdriver, this also can lead to problems. It doesn't fill the slot, it's sloppy in there, it moves back and forth. It doesn't take the whole width of the slot or the length of the slot. It also slides very easily. This can lead to dangerous situations, again, sticking yourself with the screwdriver. What you do want to use is the proper size screwdriver for the slot. Not only do you want the screwdriver to go the length of the slot, but you also want it to fill the width of the slot. This gives you the maximum amount of power in the screw slot that as you're turning the screwdriver is less likely to slip in it as you're turning, and it's a much safer way of turning the screwdriver. You're also less likely to damage the screwdriver tip.
It's also important to center the shank of the screwdriver directly over the top of the screw. If the screwdriver is in contact with the screw head at an angle, it takes much more force to turn the screw, and it can easily slip out of the slot and scratch the surrounding surfaces. Attempting to use a standard screwdriver that doesn't properly engage the screw head is the main reason technicians injure themselves while using screwdrivers.
Today we've talked about the slotted screwdriver. In future videos we're going to talk about other screwdriver designs. The slotted screwdriver, when used properly, is a very good and very safe tool. As always, you have to think about what you're doing when you're working with any hand tool. I'm Tom Dutton. Work safely and work smart.